Free Speech Union, amazing work that they do in New Zealand. On a regular basis, we speak with the CEO, Jonathan Ailing. Well, this week, honestly, getting a bit of an upgrade, going behind the scenes, talking to another member of the team. She is the in-house legal counsel or senior legal counsel for the Free Speech Union. Hannah Clow, kia ora. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Let's, I suppose, talk about your role, because some people think, oh, well, Free Speech Union, this is a group of concerned citizens, and if they don't like what's happening, they'll send a strongly worded email to somebody and say, please cease and desist, or you should be more open-minded than this, or all sorts of things. Sometimes that works, but other times the threat of legal action is what makes the difference. Is that where you and your team come in, Hannah?
Yes, it is. So, like you said, sometimes a letter doesn't work. Sometimes you need to be a bit stronger, and we really need to have the legal backing. We really need to be able to, put actions to our words. And if we believe that we have a strong legal case, then we need to be able to fight it in court. And ideally, we don't have to. Ideally, we can sort it out with a letter or have a proper chat. But we have noticed, the Free Speech Union, we have noticed in the last few years that that's not always the case.
Yeah. Certainly something which seems a reasonably positive trend. I mean, certainly all the reports I get back from the Free Speech Union is that the cases tend to go your way. I mean, that's obviously because of your wonderful skills as a legal counsel. But generally, when challenged in court, people tend to back down. The case law is flowing in your favour. Would that be an accurate generalisation?
That seems to be the case so far, and it might just be a situation where we're perhaps the first ones that are really challenging and really pushing back. And I think as a organisation, people feel empowered. They feel that when they come to us, we can stand for them. We can stand up for their rights to speak. And I mean, evidence of that is a recent win that we've had, which, Marlborough District Council.
Okay, this is
we've had a recent win there.
The people versus the grumpy librarians at the Marlborough District Council. Well, not technically called that, but what was the situation there, Hannah?
So that was a situation that unfortunately has become quite common, where you have council staff feeling that they can decide who is able to use their venues based on what's been discussed.
Yeah.
And that's a real issue. We've had that in the past recently with other councils, Wellington City Council, Taupo, all over the place. We're finding now where ratepayers are being told, look, this is what you can and can't listen to. This is what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And that's just not on. That's not why we have councils. So this case, Marlborough District Council, this was a situation where a group called Let Kids Be Kids wanted to use a meeting room at their local library, and they were refused a booking based on what they were going to be discussing, apparently. And it was because the librarians or the staff felt that they were not inclusive.
Okay.
And so refused booking. And Let Kids Be Kids spoke to us. And obviously this is something we've dealt with in the past before many times. And we've had wins. We've had wins in court on this. And in court, the law, which is case law, because people obviously, know there are several types of law. You have law, obviously, that's made through Parliament, but we also have law that's made through the courts. So the Free Speech Union a few years ago brought the Palmerston North City Council to court for refusing to allow an organisation to host a meeting there. And the court found that council-owned venues are not entitled to discriminate. They have to uphold the Bill of Rights, which includes the right to free expression, free speech. So that's one of the main cases that we relied on when we approached Marlborough District Council. We approached them very firmly, obviously wanted to inform people in the community in Marlborough and across the country of what was being done here. And we got a strong response back in terms of from the community. A lot of people agreed. They were like, well, look, I don't necessarily agree with Let Kids Be Kids. This is what people are saying, but they should still be able to use a council venue. So we push back really strongly here. And the case law that we relied on was really, that really won the case for us. We spoke to them, Jonathan Ailing and we met with the mayor and with the chief executive of Marlborough District Council last week.
Yep.
We sat down, we had a chat, and it really came down to saying, well, what's your defence here? And then we were able to resolve it because they backed down.
So this particular case didn't go to court. It was sorted out over a cup of tea and a chat with executives at the Marlborough District Council. Interested in your thoughts on this one, though, because if it wasn't for the precedent, if it wasn't for what happened in Manawatu, you wouldn't have been able to have that conversation and, we'll point out the problem. Sometimes is it better that it does go to court because it does establish that case law? It gives you that precedent that you can build an argument off?
Definitely. Like I said, the law is also made in court.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is good to go to court. Sometimes it's necessary. Obviously, it's not always in the best interests of the people involved because court is expensive. It takes a lot of time, money, obviously, as well. It's very frustrating. But sometimes it's necessary. And I think in terms of free speech in this country, there is not a lot of case law and there's not a lot of guidance to guide people, to guide lawyers, to guide everyone on how to deal with these situations where people feel that they have the right to limit what people say, prohibit people from meeting together. These are foundational things for our democracy. These are principles that we cannot back down on and we have to push back on. Otherwise, where does it end? And it may seem like a small thing, it may seem like a small thing for some council staff to think, oh, well, we'll just cancel this booking, we'll just shove these people along. But it really is a dangerous precedent.
Because there's that old adage, you can't fight City Hall. The council's decided that. There's no way that we could push back against that. This is their ruling. They've got their policies. There's nothing I can do. What Free Speech Union has demonstrated, and yourself in particular, is that you are prepared to pay the cost. You are prepared to take these cases to court. You can stand up for the little guy in this regard, and honestly, you can fight City Hall and win.
Yes, well, that's the thing, because there's an old saying in law, which is it's very difficult to win against somebody who's got very, very deep pockets, because it's a massive incentive for people. If you're paying your way in your legal fees, you're going to be encouraged to settle and to not go to court. But a lot of these government departments and these councils, they have their own lawyers, so that they're not concerned about fighting things in court. And so your average Joe, can't afford these fights. But that's what the Free Speech Union is about. And we're very appreciative of our donors and our supporters who allow us to fight for everyone. We support anyone who, doesn't matter what your views are. We don't defend what you say. And that's what we're very big on that. We don't defend what you say. We defend your right to say it. And free speech is what we're all about. And it's if we come together, then we can fight these fights. And it's, when I say it's easier than we think, I don't mean that flippantly. I mean, you'd be surprised how far you can get if you actually push back, because a lot of the time it's sometimes ignorance. And I don't know if we have time to touch on that, but one of the conditions that we agreed on with Marlborough District Council was actually to engage them on staff training to talk about how you approach difficult issues or groups that want to use your venue that you perhaps don't personally agree with.
I think that is a key part of it, I suppose. For a lot of these organisations, they think, we'll just set a policy. We'll agree amongst ourselves, this is our policy, without checking with anybody as to whether or not that is in breach of anybody's human rights. They, I suppose, as a public organisation, are making decisions in a similar way to somebody would if it was a privately owned venue, in which case, of course, they do have the freedom to say who they make it available to and who they don't. It's a confusion of the law from perhaps individuals within the organisation, not necessarily saying, these are all the bad guys in this scenario. Education rather than a big stick, perhaps.
Well, definitely. I think that's what the Free Speech Union is about. And obviously my role is to manage these legal cases.
Yep.
But it's really only a small aspect of my role and also the organisation as well. The Free Speech Union is not just about batting people, hitting people over the head.
Yeah.
It's actually about something bigger, and it's about, we have a huge amount of let's say, stuff that comes through our website, through people contacting us, and we're constantly referring, we're talking to people, we're resolving things on the back end. A lot of things don't see the courtroom, which is great because we're able to intervene before that happens. But at the same time, it's
you are prepared to go there if you need to in that regard. And I think this is the calling people's bluff in that space. You mentioned beforehand a lot of councils, they've got their own legal team, the council's legal counsel, as it were. But actually, even if they do go to court and legal precedent says that, well, actually, they're not likely to win this one, then the PR of what that looks like, okay, well, here's our local council who spent our ratepayer money defending a case which they lost. This is the same year that they're putting our rates up. That's not going to be a good look for democratically elected officials, right?
No, it's not. So sometimes it's better just to be, take the loss in terms of admit that you did wrong, and not allow any kind of ego to take over there. And I think Marlborough District Council did well there. It could have been a lot worse. And in terms of the councils that we've dealt with in the past, Marlborough District Council have been, very amicable, and they came to that meeting and they wanted to sort it out, and they came open-minded. So, we do respect that, and we hope that that's the approach that we can take. The approach that other councils take in the future, because, like you said, it doesn't look good to be spending ratepayers' money in court battling over something where maybe your community doesn't actually agree with your position. Maybe your community actually wants to allow everyone to use their facilities. So,
and hey, living up to your name and your principles, the Free Speech Union would just like to have a nice chat and a cup of tea and see if we can sort this out amicably. One of the questions that people may be asking to this, though, Hannah, and you mentioned it beforehand, that some people think, oh gosh, we couldn't get involved with legal action against council or regulatory authorities because we couldn't afford to do so. Some people may be thinking, well, how is Free Speech Union in that space where they can? That Free Speech Union is in a space where they can step into the legal system on behalf of the little guy. I know there'll be people who would look at that situation going, gosh, where does the money come from? And possibly coming up with some conspiracy theories about that. Could you clear the air on that one, Hannah? I mean, how is this funded for you guys? Why is this a priority for Free Speech Union?
So your first question, where is the money coming from? Well, it's not just money. We actually, the legal fight actually starts with me and my team. So it starts with me. I do an extensive amount of work before it even goes to a barrister or a solicitor outside the organisation. I undertake a lot of research. I have quite a lot of experience in civil litigation prior to joining the Free Speech Union, so I have experience there. So I do a lot of groundwork in terms of, okay, what are our options here? What legal action could we take? What would our strengths and weaknesses be? How would we approach this? And that takes a lot of time. So that's where a lot of money is saved there, starting with my team. We also have networks, I think would be the best way to say that. We have networks of barristers and lawyers that we work with that volunteer their time. And that's a great resource for us. And then in terms of actually paying legal fees, we will either have barristers or lawyers providing work pro bono, but we rely on our supporters. That's really it. We send emails out on a regular basis of our legal fights. If we've got something coming up, we inform our supporters, and they donate. And honestly, it doesn't need to be a lot. A lot of our donations are small, but we've got quite a broad and wide supporter base. That it's funny because it's a lot of supporters with a small donation. It makes a massive difference for us. So that's really our resources there. We have the monetary resource through our supporters,
Mm-hmm.
and then also we have networks of lawyers and people who volunteer their time because free speech is something that they're very passionate about.
Yeah,
So,
and hey, that is encouraging to hear, not just within the broader community, but also within the legal fraternity, an interest in free speech. I think that is a sign of a healthy society. Hannah, thank you for the work that you do as a part of the Free Speech Union, fsu.nz. Of course, for more information about that, and if people wanted to consider supporting the work that you do. But hey, thanks for joining us on the program today.
thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.